I've read so many psychology books. I've also read an incredible amount of spiritual books. And I just hadn't seen the connection. I couldn't find it. I love the way of being in the world where I see us as not broken. I see us as being one. And it's something that was missing in psychology. There wasn't talked about any principles.
Why should anybody care more about the 3 principles than all the established approaches to mental health and philosophy of mind?
It makes a big difference in our lives to not believe, oh, I'm just this little wave on the ocean, but to see, actually, I'm made of ocean and so are you.
Is it oversimplified to say that every single human being is already whole?
There's one cause of mental distress, which is that we don't understand how our minds work. We don't understand the inside-out nature of who and what we are.
How do you know you're not just believing a more peaceful story and calling it truth? Natasha Swerdloff, welcome to the show.
Thank you for having me.
Natasha, you're a psychotherapist, an author, and the president of the 3 Principles global community.
Yes.
The 3 Principles being a recently evolving understanding of the mind. Why should anybody care more about the 3 Principles than all the established approaches to mental health and philosophy of mind?
That's a great question. What I have found through the past 30 years as a psychotherapist, when I came across this about 13 years ago, I saw something that was so much simpler than anything I had come across before. I had gone through so many kinds of educations, not only as a psychotherapist, but also as a hypnotherapist and body therapist, lots of different things. So I was really good at getting things organized. I was really good at finding out what is wrong with you. How can we find out where it is? And like a detective, start to look at how can I help you? When I met the principles, I started to see that this is fundamentally different in the way that it looks at you're already whole. You already have within you whatever you want, whatever you need. All that is stopping you from seeing it is thought. So the reason why people should come to this understanding is to just if they want something that's a lot simpler. It's very much intuitive. It's something that it's simply something that explains how our mind works.
Is it oversimplified to say that every single human being is already whole? How can you know?
That's true. How can you know? So what I love about this is that you shouldn't take my word for it. What we try and point people towards when we have conversations or when we teach this is that you find out for yourself. Don't take my word for it. You see if you can find the space within you where you know that you're whole. And that often takes a little bit of convincing because many of us have been taught through life that we're not, that we're broken and that we need fixing. And that was definitely my approach until I met this understanding in 2012.
Mm-hmm. So for everybody who is hearing about this for the first time, what would be a good first step? What can people do to approach this?
Well, first of all, the 3 principles is simply an understanding of how the mind works. It is a way that we look at how our experience of reality is created from within us, moment to moment. So it's radically different because it's saying that it's not your genetics, it's not the way that your parents brought you up, it's not your personality. It's something that's created from within yourself every moment. And seeing that is very freeing because I can't escape that my parents were the way that they were. I can't escape my genetics. And this understanding is saying, well, you don't need to. There's something deeper than this. And it's very practical to know.
For this, it has to be true, though. Now, I wonder if some people might think, if this sounds a little bit like a way of, I don't know, spiritual bypassing, to say, I'm already whole, everybody's whole, everybody's perfect.
Yeah.
And you skipping a step there?
Oh yeah, I used to be the person who would say that. And so what I love about this is that we try to point people directly to their own experience so that they find out for themselves. So again, don't believe a word that I'm saying, but you check it out. And of course, there are ways in which we point people so that they can check it out for themselves, so that it doesn't become belief, but it becomes real knowing, deeper knowing.
Yeah. This phrase, don't believe me, check it out for yourself. It's not rare to hear. Like, one community that comes to mind is like meditation community. Another is the mindfulness community. Don't believe us, just meditate every day for 30 days and you'll see how this will enrich your life. But there's so much out there that people could try. Why should anybody try this?
Well, simply because life can be easier than you think. And that's what we're pointing to. We're pointing to a life that can be easier, not because of the circumstances changing, because life is life, but there's something that we can know about how the mind works that helps us when life is challenging, because that's how life is. It's always going to be challenging in lots of different ways. For me too. So if you look at my outward circumstances, they haven't changed through these 13 years that I've known about this understanding. But the way I deal with it is completely different.
How do you?
Well, first of all, there's 3 things that I know now that are really helpful. First of all, I've understood and seen how I am the thinker. There is an element of how this power of thought is creating my experiences from moment to moment. And the fact that I know that it's going on within me stops me from blaming you or the weather or the politics or disease or anything else or my spouse. So that's the first element, that I am the thinker. That's really powerful to know. That's much more hopeful to see that there's something within me that is creating from the inside out. The second thing that's really hopeful and helpful is to see that inside, I'm not broken. That there's something inside that is, my essence is whole. No matter what kind of experiences I've had in my life, there's something that's untouched. In the same way as a movie doesn't touch the screen. Any movie, whether it's a war movie or a romantic comedy, the screen is untouched by any movie. So in the same way, there's something within us, that which we call consciousness, that is the screen. There's something inside that has been aware of every single experience that you've had in your life, every thought, every feeling, and is in itself untouched by it. So that's also helpful to know, that it's powerful to know that we're not broken. And the third thing that I find is powerful is to point people towards the fact that we have a navigation system. We have an alarm system inside that no one has taught us how to use. At least I didn't know, and many of the people I come across have not been taught this. So let me come with an example. We all know that if we fall and we hurt our foot, it's going to hurt when we walk on it for a while. That's good. It's not wrong. It's supposed to hurt. If it didn't, you'd go out and run on it or whatever. So in the case of physical pain, we often know, this is a signal for me to change the position I'm sitting in, or not walk on my foot if I've hurt it. But in terms of our emotions, we haven't been taught what they mean. So we misinterpret, we misunderstand when we feel something. So if I'm feeling tension or stress, I often will think, I'm feeling this tension because this person did that, or that person did that, or because we have a new politician or whatever. Instead of looking at, no, nothing on the outside can create experiences inside of you. It's all created from within. And the way it's created is through this power of thought. And so when we see that we have a perfect navigation system, we just haven't been taught how it works, we are already whole inside, so we don't need fixing, and that we have a power of thought that creates all of our experiences. These three things is what makes the most difference in people's lives. When they start seeing this for themselves, their lives change. So for some people instantly, for other people over time, but it has a huge effect on people's lives, and it's amazing to see.
Before we continue with the episode, I'd love to announce something very special. Our first ever sponsor for the Beyond Skepticism podcast. And honestly, I couldn't imagine any better one. It is the Listening World Summit 2026. And there are 3 reasons why I'm so excited personally about it, and I think you might be too. Firstly, a lot of guests from this show will be speakers at the summit. For example, Marina Galan or Aaron Turner. Secondly, they will live stream the entire summit for free. And not only will they do that, they will translate it live in many languages. For example, English, Czech, Spanish, German, Ukrainian, Hebrew, Russian, and Polish. It's kind of crazy what they do for free. And thirdly, I will be there and I will host all of the panel discussions. So if you enjoyed my conversations with, for example, Aaron and Marina, you will have more to watch when I ask them questions about listening, about the understanding of the 3 principles, about well-being and success. So whether it's online or offline, please make sure to check it out at thelisteningworld.com. You'll find the link below in the description. And the dates will be from the 23rd to the 25th of May 2026 in Prague. I'm so excited to maybe see you there. And now let's go back to the episode. This sounds incredible, and it makes me think of mindsets. You know, taking accountability, like accountability mindset, responsibility mindset versus a victim mindset, and a bit of like personal development, spiritual lingo. What comes up is what happens if things really go wrong. What happens with loss and war and murder. And I had an episode recently with Marina Galan, and she shared a story of her childhood. And there was sexual abuse, and she shared how she dealt with it, and what she saw. And while in the thousands of comments, a lot of people agreed, there were also thousands of comments about this being victim blaming, self-shaming, internalizing the shame. Now, you spoke about the 3 things. You saw you're the thinker, you're not broken, and that there's a navigation system.
Yes.
Taking radical responsibility for every experience, what does it mean in situations like the one of Marina? What does it mean in murder or rape or all those horrible things happening in the world? Like, can we really say that the victim is responsible for their own experience? Can we really say that the perpetrator is whole if doing such a thing?
Yeah. So it's a great question. And to answer it, we really have to look at what is the past made of? Right? What does it exist of? So something happened to Marina and to hundreds and thousands, if not millions, of children over the world, that they are abused. And so that is all true. They were abused at a certain point in their life. There is war, there is all kinds of horrible things going on. Right now, what is going on right now? So at this moment, you can always say that internally, the only way that I can feel suffering from something that happened is I have to do it via memory. And memory is thought. So of course I can go back in memory and think about it. And if I do, I will remember how it felt through certain filters. That is normal. That's how we use memory, both for good and for bad sometimes. Now, what I help people see when I deal with the people who've suffered such abuse is I help them see that right now You're okay. You survived. And the way that you think about the past is what is creating the suffering. The way that you are continuing to play the same movie over and over and over is what creates the suffering. And so what Marina and many people start to see when they start to look in the direction of these principles is they see that the way I'm holding it innocently is creating suffering now. What happened was horrible. But do I need to carry it now, 30 years later? The way I'm carrying it through thought is what's creating the suffering in this moment. And so we don't try and hypnotize people to not, to not see what happened. It's not that. It changes the perspective on what happened then. And that's what helps people now. So as a psychotherapist, I've been so for 30 years. I've seen many people, and I used to have victims of, for instance, rape or other kinds of abuse. I would see them for years and years and years, and we would chip away little by little, trying to see more and more nuances. And now I see within 1 or 2 sessions with a person who've suffered these things that they get over it because they see, oh, in this moment, what I'm experiencing is the memory. It's not the thing. The thing happened and it was horrible. But right now, the experience is coming from within me. And just like if I have my hand on a hot stove that I automatically pull away, in the same way, why would I continue to hurt myself by continuing to play the same movie over and over and over? So we look at the nature of thought, we look at what it's made of, and we see that it's not a substance that is firm or fixed. Its nature is that it comes and it goes. So even people who've suffered terrible trauma, they start to see it's not happening now, and what it's made of is not something that can harm me in this moment, other than how I think about it. So it's very freeing and it's very hopeful.
We'll speak a bit more about psychology later. For now, this understanding, it seems to point out those 3 principles.
Yes.
Which you say are kind of a constant, a universal constant, which you can rely on.
Yeah.
You spoke about right now.
Yes.
We're okay.
Yeah.
But the moment something like violence, rape, murder, war happens, that's the right now at some point as well,
Yes.
right? What about those moments if you claim that you have those principles, those universal guidelines or rules or principles? What about those moments?
Yeah. So first of all, when we say principles, you're right. We mean that it's just how things work. Just like if I take this glass and I hold it and I drop it, we know if I let go what will happen.
Yeah.
It's the same that will happen always. So the principle of gravity is always going to be true. Now, gravity doesn't care if I believe it or not. It doesn't care if I'm male or female, old or young, rich or poor, well-educated or not. So the principles themselves are just creating experience from moment to moment. Now, when I am caught up in a lot of thinking and I'm in a crisis situation, I will deal with the crisis in a worse way than when my mind is clear. So we are wired to deal with with things that happen, accidents, war. When our minds are clear, we actually deal with it much better than we would if we were anxious about it. So very often, let's talk about something like worry. Like you're a parent and you worry about, are my kids okay? And we can worry about all kinds of things. And the truth is that well, some people say that up to 85% of the things we worry about never happens. And in my personal life, I would say that it's probably more like 98% of the things I've worried about that doesn't happen. But I have noticed that when something does happen in my life, sudden death of my mother, or sudden disease when my father had cancer, and all these different things that happen in life, that the way I deal with it in the moment, I'm wired to deal with it in the moment. Our bodies have all kinds of hormone systems. It's wired to do that. And so when I worry about something for a long time, it's almost like sometimes I see an image of being covered in thought, and I don't even know what to do. While when I'm clear-minded, I simply deal with challenges much better. So through the last 30 years, I've been working as a business consultant. And when I go into a company and I say, when do you get your best ideas? When do you perform at your best? They always say from a clear mind. They always say, well, I get my best ideas in the shower, walking my dog, playing with my kids. And so I get curious about that. Why is that? When we're not inside our thinking, our worry or our concern or our just trying to figure something out, we can see when people are trying to do something, they crunch up. And when they're free, suddenly an idea comes to me. Out of the blue, we say. What is the blue? What is that? What is it that we have access to when our mind's clear? And so it's just a very nice navigation system to know that when I am worried, when I'm caught up in my thinking, if I'm in a situation of life and death, chances are I won't be caught up in thinking. I will simply deal with it. The thinking I do is very often before or after. Oh, what happened to me? Oh no, I could have died, or this could have happened, or you worry about something that might happen in the future. But it's in this moment that we are best wired to deal with anything. And so that's helpful. So a lot of the work that we do in the Three Principles global community is we try and help people out in the world, in the Middle East or in Ukraine, in Africa, who are dealing with real crisis on a scale that we're maybe not used to in our society so much. And what helps them is that the hope that, first of all, that I'm not broken no matter what happened to me. And the second thing is, I know where to look when I'm in crisis. And it's not to my brain. It's not to my little intellect. There's a larger intelligence at play here that when my mind clears, I will know what to do. And that's beautiful to know.
Yeah, it's interesting listening to you. I think many people have like a first grasp, a first idea of what this is about. Something about well-being, something about clarity, navigating through life.
Yeah.
It's not been quite clear to me what field this actually really is. It seemed, well, the tendency that I notice in the 3P field is to not really give any specific advice on what to do, how to coach, how to facilitate a conversation, what to say, what to do, even for people who just want to have less suffering in their life, have a better life. They're asking for advice. No advice is given. So it seems like the field of psychology is maybe a bit too practical for this. The field of spirituality, maybe, a bit too overcomplicated if we compare it to the simplicity that you talk from about. And there's the, field of philosophy, maybe philosophy of mind. But I'm not sure if you're interested in the conversation with philosophy, or if that's also too complicated, too conceptual. Maybe this is a very long way of asking, what field is this?
The way I see it, what Sydney Banks had insights about is the bridge between psychology and spirituality.
And Sydney Banks
is the man who in 1974 had a huge insight. He actually had two that allowed him to realize how our mind works. Now, he said himself, it's nothing new. It's something that's always been this way. He just realized it, and so has many other people. So there's nothing new about it. What I love about his way of talking about it is that it's so simple. Now, let me explain it as a way of metaphor. So I grew up and I was very interested in psychology. So I was sort of, if you imagine, I was standing if you're standing on two skis. Like one ski is psychological, intellectual. I was really interested in how do people work, what's wrong with them, how do we help them. That was my interest. But I also had an interest in spirituality. I had a sense, just personally, that there's something bigger at play. I couldn't touch it. I couldn't talk to it. But there was this sense. There was a sense here that there's something here. So in a way, I felt like I was always standing on one ski down the slope. And while the leg of the ski that you're standing on gets really strong, it can also get overwhelmed quite quickly because you're just standing on one foot. And the other one is sort of hanging here, and I was interested, but I would sometimes drop into something inside of myself where that would be very peaceful and very joyful. And when it happened and I felt these overwhelming feelings of love and connection, I would see them as just grace. I would see them as a coincidence, not knowing that it was something I could rely on. So imagine that I'm going through life, and I think many of us do, that we have a sense that there's something here, but because we can't touch it, we kind of overlook it. So we rely on, I can see you, I can feel myself, I can notice what's going on inside. Now, when Sydney Banks came along, this is what happened inside of me. I felt that now is this connection between the form and the formless, between psychology and spirituality. And the connection is thought.
And for the people listening right now, Natasha's just holding her hands at the both at the same level.
Yes.
And before at one at a higher level and one at a lower level, right?
Yeah, it's more that I was sort of tilting to one side. If you imagine that you're just standing on your right ski.
Right.
And of course, that leg that you're standing on will get really strong, but you'll always go in just one direction. You can't really get balance.
Yeah.
And so when I started to realize, there's this bridge between what I've been very interested in. I read so many psychology books. I've also read an incredible amount of spiritual books. And I just hadn't seen the connection. I couldn't find it. And when I heard Sydney Banks talk, and when I then met Dicken Bettinger, Dr. Dicken Bettinger, who is both my friend now and my co-author, I heard him speak in a way where I suddenly realized that thought was the connection. Now, when I say thought, I don't mean thinking. It's a word that we use, and so it can be sometimes confusing. What do you mean thought? Don't you mean thinking? No, thinking is what I do as a person. But the potential to think, the full creative potential to think anything comes from the power of thought. And that is a way of talking about something that I had never heard before. And it made all the difference. It connected the dots that I hadn't seen connected before. And it allowed me to suddenly bridge something within myself that I hadn't seen. So that was a huge epiphany for me, because I'd been very interested in consciousness. In fact, when I met Dicken, and he was, I had 8 sessions of mentoring with him. All 8 sessions was about consciousness. It's all I wanted to talk about. I was just very interested in that. And so when I started to see that, thought is what creates my experience, and consciousness is what knows my experience, and it's all powered by this universal mind. So coming back to your question about well, it doesn't really seem like we give any answers and we don't say what to do. That's because it would be incredibly arrogant of me to think that I know best what you should be doing. I know that, like me, you are connected to a larger mind. And for that larger mind, it knows what you should be doing all the time. So all I need to do is to point you to that source within yourself, and then you will get the answer for you. I can never know what's best for you to do.
Dick and Bettinger, by the way, for the people listening, a guest of one of the recent episodes, and somebody you also co-wrote a book with.
Yes.
You want to shout it out for a second?
Sure. We wrote a book called Coming Home, Uncovering the Foundations of Psychological Well-Being. So the 3 principles is really the foundation of our psychological well-being. Now, well-being being what's inside of us, the well of being, it's something that's already within. And when we see it, I was going to say informs, it brings into form a physical and psychological well-being as well when we see it.
You said it may be perceived as incredibly arrogant for you to say what other people should do.
Yeah.
It may be perceived as arrogant as well to make a claim about the ultimate nature of reality in the form of that everybody is connected to a mind.
Yeah.
And this claim, at least for me, sounds like a philosophical claim.
Yeah.
So I'd love to repeat my question from before. What is this field that you are in? Higher psychological understanding, a spiritual understanding, a philosophical take?
Sydney Banks himself said this is a spiritual understanding. And I love the word spirit because it's something that is formless. We can all drink spirits. We can be in a good spirit. Spirit simply means something that is, it's like breath. It's like we can be inspired. We can be, the word is being used in many different ways, but we're simply pointing to that it's a formless understanding of how we work. Now, if we go to physics, I've been working a lot at the Danish Technical University. I used to do that for many years, and sometimes I would teach the physicists, the theoretical physicists, and they would talk about this quantum field and how everything is created from that. Everything arises from a field that is pure energy. And so in that way, it's completely aligned with what Sydney Banks saw, which is that everything is energy, and out of that, everything arises. So all form comes from something formless. So there's no doubt the 3 principles is a spiritual understanding, and it points to something that has a psychological effect. It affects who we are in this world of form. So our psychology, our personality, how we live our life, it improves a lot when we start to looking towards the formless nature of life.
Usually many spiritual traditions have a rich history and a deep dive into the question of what the nature of reality is through not only philosophic texts, but also stories and metaphors and many other things. I wonder 2 things. If this is a spiritual understanding that is, at least it seems to be very similar in your take on what reality really is, how things really work, why not go directly to the ancient spiritual understanding? And if it's about the simplicity and the implications, wouldn't this be more of a philosophy of mind? A philosophy, per definition, what the word means is love for wisdom. So philosophy of mind just means love for wisdom for mind. Love for wisdom of mind, maybe. Yeah, the metaphysics in general are the field of philosophy concerned with the first principle of things. just the literal meaning of those terms sound so matching to what you talk about in terms of what you see in the three principles.
Yeah.
Why would it not be? Why is it spiritual?
It's funny because if you Google Sydney Banks, you will see him written up as an author, as a philosopher, as a theosopher. You can see many different titles. Now let me go back to what you said in your question. Part of it was that through all ages, through all times, people have been searching for truth. I have a sense that there's something, when I used the ski metaphor before, there's something that we've always intuited that was true. And then I think that through all times, there's been people who've seen the truth, touched the truth. And then through the different cultures that people have been in, they have used their language. So now, here comes Sydney Banks in 1974, and he has an insight into the truth or the nature of reality, and he uses the words that match that. Now, in 100 years, I'm sure there will be, or even now, I see many young people who start speaking about this in their own way, and they match the culture and the language that is now. So in that sense, I believe that we don't have, if we look back, what will we see? We will see that almost every single spiritual direction says, look within. Everything you're looking for is already within you. All of them. And then they are covered in, or in you must do this, or you must do that. I love looking at the traditions, like behind all the form of different kinds of religion. Like I love to look deeply into what did the all Christian, like what does the Christian mysticists say? What do the Jewish mysticists say? What do the Sufis say? And so on. Because they say the same, but it's covered in different clothes. And I love to think about us humans in the same way. We dress differently. We look different. We dress different. We have different colors of skin, of eye, of hair. And on the outside, we look very, very different. But within, we're the same. And it makes a huge difference when we start seeing the connectedness of all things, and we start not just believing, oh, I am not separate, I am one with, but we start knowing that we're one with everyone. It's very different, and it makes a big difference in our lives to not believe, oh, I'm just this little wave on the ocean, but to see, actually, I'm made of ocean, and so are you.
Well, it sounds very believable to me, that thinking that makes a big difference in life. It's just the question of if it's true or not remains.
Yeah.
So why shouldn't people go to those ancient traditions?
They can. There's nothing that stops people from doing all kinds of things, and I think whatever is helpful to people, that's what they're going to do. I think us adults, we are motivated from within, and so there's no. I love that about this understanding. It's not saying what you can or cannot do. It simply points to something that's true for all of us. So a very practical example is that many of my clients, I have a lot of Orthodox Jewish women who come from, they're so Orthodox that, they wear wigs, and they are, they follow the letter of the Bible, and they love this understanding, because there's nothing in this way of seeing life that is in any conflict to their religion. In fact, when we start to look at this, we can more appreciate the religion that we're in. So I love that this is not a religion. Why is it not? Because a religion has already been created. We're looking to that which does the creating. So we're looking at a completely different place. So it never becomes a conflict between religions. So when people say, isn't it a cult or isn't it a religion? No, it's what creates cults and religions through thought, because people will touch something, sense that it's true, and then create a form around it. So that's why there's so many different kinds of therapy and psychology and methods of trying to feel better.
Which we will explore further later. It still sounds very philosophical to me. But you stay at the point that it's a spiritual understanding with a lot of implications to psychology.
All the implications of psychology. There's nothing that's not created from this spiritual field of energy.
Could you share a story? Maybe one that stayed with you, that captures what is truly different about this understanding.
Well, let me just make a really practical one. Just yesterday, I was speaking to a man who had been following one of my talks, and he is afraid of dying. So he has a death of anxiety of dying. And he was walking up the stairs to his house, and he felt his heart pounding in his chest really hardly. And so the first thing that happened was, oh my gosh, I'm dying, was his first thought. Now it's going to happen.
Yeah.
And then he went, wait a minute, what did Natasha say? Oh, there could be another solution here. What could that pounding also mean? And then he thought to himself, well, since I got a child 3 years ago, I haven't really been going to the gym, and I think I've gained a little bit of weight. And suddenly he went, oh, maybe this pounding in my chest doesn't mean I'm dying. It means that I am just not in very good physical shape at the moment. It's just a tiny example, but it shows that just that shift in perspective, the fear of dying was gone immediately. And what came instead was, maybe I should get back to the gym at some point. So those stories, and I have hundreds, if not thousands of them, they're little shifts that people have in understanding that helps them see world in a different way.
So what happened exactly in your example? Did the person recognize the nature of thought the moment when he had that thought about dying?
Yeah.
And when recognizing, he kind of could take a step back, and then there was room for different thoughts?
Yeah, it was actually 2 of the 3 things that I mentioned before. He recognized that thinking that the symptom meant that he was dying, that was created from within him. And then because I had spoken to him about how symptoms are a wake-up call, he was able to go, maybe it could mean something else as well. And so he could see, even just having the choice between the 2, what made him calm down. And when he calmed down, then a new thought came, maybe I should get to the gym.
I want to hear more stories, but maybe before, the 3 things you mentioned.
Yes.
I am the thinker, I'm not broken, and the navigation system.
Yes.
Are those mapping to the 3 principles in the 3 principle understanding?
Not quite. They're more, these are the 3 things that have shown through these more than 50 years that the 3 principles have been talked about.
Yeah.
These 3 are the 3 elements that most people find are helpful. Like when you talk to researchers about, well, what do you see is helpful to people? And also when you talk to us, the practitioners that share this every day, we see that when people see I am the thinker, when they realize that, that's huge. I've also written a children's book called Lulu and Leo, The Wise Wizard. And in it, the wise wizard gives them a paintbrush. And the paintbrush is something that they can use to create their own reality through paint. And so in the book, it's for 5 to 10-year-olds. They start to see, oh, I've been painting with dark colors. So now I feel sad or I feel frightened. What happens when I paint with light colors? And so it's just a nice metaphor for we have this paintbrush. We can use it as we want. But we have to realize that the paintbrush is mine. You spoke before about psychological victim cycles and things like that. So if I'm feeling bad and I point to you and saying, you are making me feel this way, then I'm a victim of you, because now I can't feel better before you change. So I'm waiting, and why doesn't Michael change? And you must change because I'm feeling bad. It's huge to see I actually have a choice here. So let's say we were in a relationship and you left me. That's true, you left me. Now I can then blame you for leaving me and you shouldn't have done it, and I continue to do that. Some people do that for years and they're stuck in the victim cycle. Or I can say, okay, Michael left me. Here I am. What can I do now? Like making a full stop and saying, this is what happened. And in that moment, I'm taking a paintbrush and I'm starting a new canvas. And that is really hopeful and helpful to people when they see, wow, I have the power here. It's within me. If I'm always blaming you, I'm always going to be a victim of you. If I'm always blaming my boss, society, the politicians about how I'm feeling, what am I going to do? They're not going to change anytime soon. So it's...
I can see the empowerment nature of this. We go back slightly into the moral dilemma. If that's true, and if the only reason of my not feeling well-being is that I projected that power of responsibility outwards to you, and then make me dependent on you, but it's still my choice to do that. What sense would there ever be in, for example, the criminal system? Like if anybody at any point could just go kind of back to claiming their power, is there even anything wrong with doing harm to other people? We can't really do harm to other people, right? Based on this understanding. So why even care?
Well, there's two perspectives of taking on your question. One is that, let's say that I'm in a violent relationship and my husband is beating me up. Now, that is something that when I see that my pain is created from me deciding to stay with him all the time, it's created from how I feel a victim of, and I might make stories saying, I can't leave because I don't have any money, or I can't leave because this, that, and the other. The longer I stay in that victim cycle, I'm going to be unable to really have a choice. When I see, it's the way I'm thinking about this relationship that's keeping me stuck. When that lets go, and the mind settles down and frees, a new thought might come. The new thought might be a different way of speaking to him about it. It might be leaving. It might be going to the police. I mean, there might be a gazillion different ways of solving it. So when I speak to people, or very often women who are in violent relationships, and they start to see, oh, I'm not a victim of circumstance. I'm a victim of my thinking about the situation. Then they have a choice.
Yeah, I understand. I think the point you're making.
Yeah.
To my question, it was also about
the moral.
Why is it even right to leave a violent relationship? I mean, it seems so intuitive and obvious to say yes, but if I take this understanding seriously, and if I take it as serious and true that the only place where my experience can come from is from inside.
Yes.
Always.
Yes.
Because those are principles of how reality works.
Yes.
Right?
Yes.
Would it then even be good to leave such a relationship? Beyond the wanting and not wanting it. Obviously, most people want to, if not everybody that I can think of at least. But this lack of a moral stance of this is wrong, of this is caused by the person breaking the law, doing horrible things. Is there any distinction left in even what to do, if to leave, if to stay? Like, does it even matter?
Well, what we're trying to teach people who are, for instance, in that kind of relationship is what is going on over in the other person is also an innocent misunderstanding of what's creating his or her feelings. So when we start to see that they are caught up in their thinking and their belief that the only way they can get their husband or wife to shut up is by hitting them or whatever it is, or it even gives them pleasure to see other people being in pain. It's also a misunderstanding of what creates pleasure or pain. So when we start to see, well, we're all the same, then the person themselves can either stay in the relationship, see if their spouse themselves can wake up to what creates the experience inside of them, or they themselves see, oh, that's not possible, I'm just going to go. And so there's no answer of it's right or wrong in that situation. That will be up to the person. Do I think that people should not be hitting each other? Of course. Do I think that war and violence and rape is wrong? Yes. As a human being, I absolutely do. When we see from a larger perspective, from a spiritual perspective, now Sydney Banks said that we're living in a divine dream suspended between time, space, and matter. What does that mean? Well, it's above my pay grade, actually, to know that as deeply as he did. But my sense is that we're living in this reality that we call reality. And it's kind of like in a dream where we can wake up in the dream and it feels so true. Everything that was going on felt so right. So for instance, this morning when my husband woke me up, I was in the middle of a dream and I remember exactly the situation. And I remember I was here and there was a person there and I was just about to say something. And it's like, it's so real. And then I woke up and it was gone. How is that possible? And is this a dream? How can I know that this is not also a dream? Can I?
A big question on the field of philosophy.
Yeah, it is. I don't have the answer, but I like to play with that. For me personally, it's like, this is a dream, a divine dream. What is the purpose? Why are we here? These are questions that philosophers and theosophers have been dealing with for ages, and I find it endlessly fascinating still. Even though I love the way of talking about the nature of reality from a principles perspective. And it's something that was missing in psychology. There wasn't principles, there wasn't talked about any principles. And so for me, I love the way of being in the world where I see us as not broken. I see us as being one. And I see that the peace that we're looking for outside of ourselves and all the different measures we're trying to do in the world to try and find peace, I have seen for myself that when each person finds peace within themselves, that's all we need. All we need is to find it within ourselves, because if I have peace inside, why would I ever harm you? Why would I ever hurt you? Why would I ever steal from you? Why would I murder you? There's just peace inside. So, and I believe that every single one of us can wake up to that peace. And that's what I'm doing personally in my life. It's what I'm doing as president for the Three Principles Global Community, trying to share this very hopeful message that Sydney Banks pointed out, that what we're looking for is already here.
Okay. Before we go diving into some of the related fields, like psychology and philosophy,
Yeah.
can you share one more tangible insight or story you had, maybe in your own life, something that changed that people wouldn't expect or you didn't expect?
Yes. I have a fun one. On an iPhone, there's something called Find My iPhone. And so that you can find your device.
Yeah.
And my father was getting lost in his car all the time because he was getting old and he wasn't supposed to be driving. And so he would call me from somewhere. And so I installed Find My iPhone. So I had it. Then one day, I'm trying to find my father. Is he home? Where is he? And I also had my husband's phone on it. And I see that he's parked somewhere where it's like, it's not where he works. Oh no, where is he? And so a girlfriend had just told me that her husband had been cheating on her for the past year. She had been there the day before. So my head was full of the cheating story. I saw that John was not where he's supposed to be or where he often is. He was somewhere. And the little dot was in the same place. So now my mind went crazy. What's he doing? Who is it? Who lives there? So I went on to Google and I tried to find out the name of the person, and it was a woman's name. And I tried to see if I could find her on Facebook, and I tried all kinds of things. And then the little dot started to move, and then I was so caught up in my worry and thinking, and what will I do, and will I leave him, or I was angry and frustrated. And I'm not somebody who's jealous. Usually, it's never happened before. So I call him. Hi, honey. Where are you? He said, "Oh, I've just arrived at my workplace. I'm just doing this and that. Why are you calling?" "Oh, I just wanted to ask if you wanted to go out to lunch." I was so ashamed of myself for looking at where he was. And so he says, I'm working right now. I can't come to lunch with you right now, but we'll talk later. 20 minutes later, he's home because he could hear in my voice I was completely out of it. He said, "What?" So I told him the story. And he was laughing so hard. It turns out that it's a nursing home. So it's a place where old people live. And so it's just that the device it moves, not very quickly. And so we were both laughing about it. And it was just so powerful to see the power of thought. You take a couple of facts. He's there at that point. The fact that my girlfriend had told me the story the day before, and that story became part of how I was seeing, and now I'm taking these two things together and creating my own story about John being unfaithful, and it was seeing it afterwards was really funny. That's the power of thought.
What challenges do the principles tackle well that other understandings struggle with? For example, what answers to problems can the principles provide that are either more intuitive or explain things better?
What I love about this understanding that it's so simple and it's intuitive. I can explain this to a 5-year-old or an 8-year-old, and I do. Can I tell you a story about an 8-year-old I worked with?
Yeah.
Just to illustrate something that's so simple. This boy had been told that he had ADHD and anxiety at 8 years old. And his parents were being called from school every week because he was hitting the other children. And so his grandmother had heard about me and said, "Can I please bring him?" And I said, "Sure." So he comes up and I talked to him about how he's doing and what's going on. And he tells me that when other people tease him, when the kids at school tease him, he hits them. And I said, "Is there any time between they tease you and you hit?" And he says, "No, it's immediate. I just hit them." I said, "Okay." I said, "Have you noticed that sometimes you're in a good mood, sometimes you're in a bad mood?" He said, "Yeah." I said, "Well, what are you like when you're in a good mood? How are you with your friends?" He says, "Well, then I want to play with them and we have fun and we do all kinds of cool things." And I said, "And when you're in a bad mood, then what happens?" And then he told me that. So we started to establish that he just got a sense of his own moods and how he acts differently when he's in low or high mood and how he communicates differently. At 8 years old, he knew this. Then I said to him, do you realize that your friends also have high and low moods? And you could see he had an insight. I said, well, so let's talk about the friend that teases you most. And he said, oh, that's Thomas. I said, well, when Thomas comes to school and he's teasing you, do you think he's in a good mood or in a bad mood? Oh, he's in a bad mood. So if he comes to school in a bad mood, can that have anything to do with you? And he had a realization. He went, no. He comes straight from home and he starts teasing me. He must be in a low mood when he gets to school. So when he teases you, it has nothing to do with you. He says no. And just that little insight that created space between teasing and hitting, it was enough space in his mind that he was able to see that what the other kid did had nothing to do with him. Then I said to him, so when you're in a good mood and Thomas teases you, what can you do? He said, well, I really like Thomas, so then I can say, do you want to play something? I don't have to take it seriously. I know it has nothing to do with me. Maybe he was teased by his brother or his parents were arguing or something. And I said, and when you're in a bad mood, what can you do? He said, well, then I can walk away. Now, these answers came from him. All I did was pointing out something that's natural for all of us, that we're sometimes in a good mood, sometimes we're in a bad mood. And whatever mood we're in affects how we behave and how we communicate. And I know, because I know the grandmother, that the school has not called him once in more than a year. They've not called home and to tell about him hitting. He doesn't do it anymore.
Sounds powerful.
It's powerful, and it's a little insight. And all I had to do was have one conversation with a boy of 8 years old for, I think he was at my place for maybe 30 or 40 minutes. He had one insight, and that changed everything.
If my experience is coming just from the inside.
Yes.
And that boy seemed to realize that with himself and with other people.
Yes.
So there was a kind of disconnect from cause and effect.
Yes.
Between people.
Yeah.
So if we take this for beautiful feelings, like love, like a loving relationship with a family member, with a life partner, that means that beautiful feeling of love has nothing to do with them.
Yes.
Zero.
Exactly.
Absolutely nothing.
Absolutely nothing.
And doesn't that seem to have some implications?
Yes, it has beautiful implications for relationships.
Okay.
Because when people realize that love, peace of mind, joy is within you, I know that is true for me. My husband knows that that's true for him. That means that it's not on his shoulders to make me happy. Now, many relationships, they are depending on each other. You have to make me happy. You're not making me happy right now. And so it becomes a fight.
Yeah.
When I'm happy and my husband's happy and it has nothing to do with each other, here are two free people who really enjoy being together. And we do. So our psychological preferences is that we found each other and we really like being together. And now we can go through life celebrating the joy that we already feeling inside, and we can give that to other people around us. But it's just, it's powerful to know it's already inside.
But you liking to be with him is not because he gives you any emotion.
No.
So what is left of the liking? Why? Does it make it kind of arbitrary who we are with?
Well, it does. In a spiritual sense, it would be. I love you too. But my preference is to be with John. So on a psychological form level, on my human level in a way, I have a preference for a man who is in a certain way, the humor, the intelligence, the creativity, all the wonderful things that I could say about John. He's a perfect partner for me. So on the human level, Absolutely. He's the one I want to be with. But on a spiritual level, the love that I have inside is for everyone.
Mm. Before you told the story of that boy,
Yeah.
I asked you what, challenges can be better explained by this understanding
Yeah.
than by other understandings. And the follow-up would be, what's the biggest challenge for this understanding? What does this understanding struggling with compared to other ones?
To me, it is that what we're speaking about doesn't have a form. Like psychology has so many explanations. It makes sense. It's psychological. But spiritual, because it doesn't have a form, it isn't 2 and 2 is 4. You can't say it. It's another way of knowing it. So the way we have to speak about it must help people realize it for themselves. And to help people do that, we can't use language in the same way that we do. We talk often in this understanding about something we call grounding. And grounding simply means it's the level of understanding I have about my own true nature. The more I know this for myself, the more I become a tuning fork, so that when I speak with people, they can sense the knowing that I have within. And something inside of them starts to resonate with that. And then they find it in themselves. They don't find my peace, they find the peace inside of themselves. And then often people will feel better after a conversation. They will leave the room, they will go home, and they will maybe be shook up after an hour or a day or a week. They come back, we do it one more time, and then they get a little more grounded. And after a while, people sit or rest in their true nature so much that coming away from that becomes an option, not something that happens automatically. So sometimes I use the metaphor of when life is sort of showing its drama through the news or a friend calling or something. It's like, come into my drama. And very often I'll go, no, thank you. I'm really happy being here just as I am. But can I help you with something? So the way that I train coaches to have conversations with people is that I help them see there's so much for themselves that whoever or whatever the drama is from the client in front of them, they don't get sucked in. Because I cannot help you if I get sucked into your drama. I can only help you from a calm mind. So my drama inside doesn't help you. It helps you that I'm peaceful.
So I asked you about the biggest challenge of this understanding.
Yes.
And you continued telling me how wonderfully it works.
Yes. And the challenge is that as I started to say, that it's formless. That's the challenge, that it's something that we can know within ourselves. I can't explain it. I can't say it, but I can point.
And you can't prove it?
I can't prove it.
Which will make it difficult with the field of psychology and the field of the sciences. But we'll continue there. The last question of the section would be, what are the biggest misunderstandings people have about the 3 principles? Maybe even inside the 3P community.
I see that the fact that Sydney Banks talked about thought means that people often think it's their thinking that creates their experiences. And when I think that it's my thinking that creates it, then I become my own victim. Now, I used to be able to say, you are creating this in me. And now, for many people, the misunderstanding is, oh, so I'm creating my own suffering. So now I used to be a victim of you, now I'm a victim of myself. And people are very hard on themselves. So the misunderstanding is, because it's almost the same word, the power of thought and thinking. One is impersonal, potential to think anything, and the other thing is how you're using it. That is the biggest misunderstanding that I see, and I see it create so much unnecessary suffering, because now people are going, oh, I'm making myself stressed. oh, I'm making myself sad, instead of this power of thought is creating all of these experiences when I believe my own thinking. Only when I believe it. Thinking itself has no power to create, nothing at all. It has already been created. When you have a thought, it's been created. So the principle of thought points to that which does the creating. And it makes all the difference in the world to see that it's deeper than your personal thinking.
Let's make it practical again. If someone came to you feeling lost, struggling to find a sense of purpose or meaning, how would your conversation look different from what they might experience with cognitive behavioral therapy or other popular therapy modalities?
Well, I can just go to the way I used to work as a psychotherapist. I would immediately, because I've worked with thousands of business people and people not in business. And I would usually go to, well, what makes you happy? And what have you done before? And who do you know is doing something cool? And when do you feel purpose? I go a completely different direction now. I share with people that they are connected to this vast intelligence behind the entire universe. And just as that knows how to create and how to operate all living beings, it also operates you and me. So if you were my client and you were struggling with your sense of purpose or which direction, I would simply point you to the inner navigation system you have of when you are using your intellect to make decisions and when you are using a deeper intelligence to make decisions. Now, when you use your intellect to make decisions, there's always going to be a right and a wrong. You could do this, you could do that, you can be a carpenter or a plumber, but something deeper knows. So when people start to notice, oh, I have a navigation system inside, and when I listen to that deeper intelligence, that wisdom within, I'm automatically moved in the direction that is right for me. Again, it's above my pay grade and it would be arrogant of me to know what you should be doing with your life. So all I need to do is to point you to that within you, which knows.
So with all this experience you probably had the one or the other client that felt a bit estranged by this notion of being connected to this universal, kind of abstract mind. What do you do, and how do you envision, if this understanding spreads, how therapists respond to that? It almost seems like you're asking people from the get-go to accept or at least be very open to this whole different understanding of reality and who they are.
I don't. I simply ask them I ask them some very simple questions. For instance, I will say, let's say that you're struggling with where to go and you don't know how to make a decision. Then I might ask you, have you made decisions in your life before where you knew to go into a relationship or leave a relationship? You knew to stay in a job or leave a job or move homes? And most likely you'd go, yeah, I've had that experience. And then I might ask you, how did you know? And now you tell me how you knew it. Right? Very often, I would say almost 100% of the time, people say, oh, I just knew I need to leave this relationship. Oh, I just knew that this job was not for me. And so then we talk about the nature of knowing. How did you know that? Was it because you made a list, like, these are all the lovely qualities of my spouse, and these I don't like? No, they just knew it at a certain point. So I point them towards the inner navigation system that's always available, and I point out that the knowing always comes up as a feeling of, oh, I know what to do. It feels certain and it feels peaceful, is the kind of words people use. It just comes up as one, whereas the intellect always comes up with, you could do this, you could do that, maybe you should stay, maybe you should go, maybe you should do. It comes up with so many different possibilities. That's how we know it's the intellect. Wisdom always comes up at one.
And you're saying it's reliable?
It's reliable. It's 100% reliable.
So it never happened that I had just an inner knowing to go to a specific store or visit a friend, and then a bus came by and got me to my grave. That never happened?
Well, I guess so. I mean, I can imagine that for some people that's exactly how it happens.
So how
do we know if that's wrong? That's above my pay grade to know.
So you might die listening to your innate wisdom, but that doesn't necessarily mean it's wrong.
That's one way of saying it. I would say that
it's
a very philosophical question, and so I don't know how to answer it. All I know is that you ask me when people come to me with practical questions about anything, I simply have to point them towards the navigation system that's already completely alive and at work inside of them. And I can quite easily go to different parts of their life when they knew something, even an 8-year-old. There's something that they just know. Let's take something like love. Right? How do you know when you love someone? Do I love my husband because he's a handsome man with beautiful blue eyes and steel gray hair? No, it's not why I love him. The knowing of the love that I have for him is formless. It doesn't have a form. I can't put it into an Excel document and document why I love him. I just do. And the moment I knew it was the moment I knew I wanted to spend my life with him.
Yeah, it's certainly a struggle trying to quantize love.
Yes.
It almost inevitably loses its soul, its sense, its what is it about, you know?
Yeah. And it's formless. And notice how many songs have been written about love, how many poems have been written, how many books have been written about love. So we're very interested in it and we want it.
Right.
But we can't quantify it. How can we prove that love exists? It's a knowing.
Okay. Traditional psychology relies heavily on diagnostic labels.
Yes.
Depression, anxiety, trauma, and so on. How do you see that from the 3P perspective?
So the way I see all diagnosis, is that it is a description of behavior. The behavior that comes out when you're in a situation of, let's call it stress. You're in a mental stress situation, which varies, of course, from person to person. Now, when you're in mental stress, you have certain behavior that you do. You might, some people will eat chocolate, some people will drink alcohol, some people might be depressed. So the way we deal with stress becomes a certain behavior, and that's what we diagnose. The 3 principles says there's one cause of all mental stress. There's one cause of mental distress, which is that we don't understand how our minds work. We don't understand the inside-out nature of who and what we are. And when we understand that, so there's only one cure, which is understanding. And so what I love about this field is that myself and my colleagues, psychologists, psychiatrists, work in the same way. We help people realize that inner well-being that we talked about from the beginning, this my point number 2, that we are already whole and we're not broken, whatever has happened and whatever kind of mental distress we've been in. So I see diagnosis as being a very useful way of talking about a certain parts of behavior, but it's not useful in treating them unless we see the root cause, which is mental stress.
I would guess many psychologists would find that a bit simplistic.
Yes.
Everything, just one root cause. It's all a misunderstanding. All those diagnostics, it's just a couple of descriptions that may be useful sometimes and often not.
Yes.
What would your response be to your colleagues?
Oh, it's not. I think it's about a month ago that I did speak to a group of doctors and psychologists, and they had a lot of questions, but I could also see that parts of them were touched. And through my trainings, I often have psychologists and even psychiatrists as part of the group, because they start to see that maybe there's a way to look at people's health in a different way than they've been taught. And so they're curious. And that curiosity often leads them down the road to, could this be true? Could there be a simpler way? And when they start to see me working, often I will do coaching demonstrations where they see the kind of questions that I ask and the kind of insights they get, and they get curious, like, what happened there? It's also how I got into this understanding in 2012, was I went to a seminar with Michael Neal, who you've also had in your show here, called Coaching from the Inside Out. And I spent the entire 3 days going, what is he doing? Why is this working? Because coming from my psychotherapist background, I was looking for what tools and what are the questions and how does he create rapport? And I was very curious about it, and I couldn't find the solution. And being me, I got curious. And so that's how my journey into this started. And so that's the kind of curiosity I try to spark when I go out and speak to doctors and lawyers and psychologists and psychiatrists, is that if they can just get a sense that there's something here that is simpler, and it points to something that they themselves know is true, when I point them in that direction, then they often will come wanting to know more.
You just spoke about the lack of methods and best practices and what to do and when to do, structure.
Yeah.
Instead, you also spoke about grounding.
Yeah.
Like the inner awareness of one's own being.
Yes.
Based on your view of who we really are.
Yeah.
Let's just envision a future where the three-principle understanding reshapes the world of psychology. What would training and certification even look like? How could we measure this grounding that seems so important in the three principles understanding if it's by definition not conceptual?
Yeah. It's a great question, because we can't measure it, but we can see what people do. So, for instance, when I train coaches, I talk about the grounding the entire time, and I won't even allow people to go into my coaching education if they don't have a certain kind of training before they even come, because it's so important to me that they have understood something about what creates my experience and who am I. Those are the only two questions that really this understanding is pointing towards. When people see that for themselves, the way I see it as a trainer is, if I'm watching you coach somebody and the person tells a dramatic story, and I see you get sucked into the story, I see you getting frightened for them, or, no, you should leave the guy, he's hitting you. The more I see you caught up in the drama, the more I know that you didn't stay in your grounding. So it's things like that, but it's not quantifiable in the same way as if you went into a math test and you could simply see there's 2 lines under each answer. So it's a sense, but I know exactly what I'm looking for when I look at people doing coaching, for instance.
Right.
I can, when I listen to them speak, I can hear in the way they speak, how much have they seen for themselves?
The issue would be that you may know, and that's, it makes sense to even say, even you're doing this for a long time, you've written many books, you're the president of the 3PGC. But again, in this envisioning of the principles spreading, across this field, the field of psychology.
Yeah.
It's not about you only. Then it's about
No.
people that you train and they train, and
Yes.
and so in a way we transfer the issue of measuring the grounding of the people to measuring the grounding of the teachers.
Yeah.
You know, so it's still kind of the same problem in a different color.
Yes.
But it seems unavoidable if this spreads.
Yeah. Absolutely. It is one of the, you were asking before, what are some of the challenges for this spreading, which is that it's difficult to measure in other people other than from the feeling. What is the feeling that they're sharing from? What is the way in which they point people to see in themselves what creates their experience? What is the way in which they stay in their grounding when somebody gets upset at them or gets angry at them? How do they react? On the board of the Three Principles Global Community, one of the things that we're paying close attention to in the group with each other is how we deal with some of the tensions that sometimes can arise in any group, or something outside seems to be threatening. Like, how do we deal with it? And that is how we help each other to stay grounded. It's like, oh, I see right now that I'm being caught up. Let's take a break. Let's do a 20-minute break. And then we leave the meeting and we come back. And as we come back, we know that something new and fresh will come to us. Now, this is very practical. What if people do that in all kinds of meetings, in companies around the world, in governments? I feel that this discussion is getting heated. Now, when a discussion gets heated, I am not in my clarity anymore. I'm going to say something that's not going to be very helpful or reliable.
Right.
So just knowing I need a break, let's take a break, come back and see what's new and fresh. So back to your question, it's difficult to measure, and the only way we can do it is in the situation, which is why we can, when we listen to people, we can hear from how they speak. Do you know what is creating your experience right now? And do you know who you are? Those are the two things that we look at when we try to measure a person's grounding.
Do you really think that the field of psychology ever could or would accept something that can't be standardized or can't be measured?
That's a good question. I sure hope so. I sure hope so. There's a tipping point with everything that there has been through all the centuries. I remember when I grew up, going to a chiropractor was almost voodoo. And now, I mean, who doesn't have a chiropractor or a reflexiologist, right? That's very common. So it's this things change, and so I think that it's not that psychology will there's always going to be psychologists, but what if they're informed a little more about this way of seeing life? I think that would be huge, and I think that has a real possibility to happen.
To conclude the psychology section, is there anything else you want to say regarding psychology and this understanding that you haven't had the chance yet?
Sure. One of the biggest differences that I see in the way I used to work before and the way I work now is that as a psychotherapist, when a person felt bad, so let's say you come to me and you have a challenge, I would look in your childhood, I would look in your experiences, I would look in any trauma you've had. There would be, like, let's just say 10,000 different reasons why you're feeling what you were feeling. So it was a good business case. I could spend a lot of time on you. Now, with this understanding, there's only one. There's one reason for you experiencing the challenge that you have. And it's the way you're using the power of thought. Now, when people see that, and for many people, that's the first insight they have. So imagine if 9,999 ideas about why you're feeling the way you're feeling, if they drop, can you imagine how quiet your mind becomes? So that's one of the first things that happen, is that the mind gets quiet. So in a way, you could say the way most psychologists and psychotherapists work is they work on a horizontal level. They look at all the different ways in which we could feel bad, only believing that it must be something out there. And then they find out, oh, there's one source. So the three principles understanding the way that we speak is we look within. It's a vertical direction, which is very simple.
Okay. Moving on to philosophy. When you say thought creates our experience, do you mean thought literally brings reality into being, or that it simply filters it? That single word, creates, has enormous philosophical weight.
Yeah. Just the way I like to speak about this is might be a little different than others. I always like to say that the three principles create our experience. We think, we're alive, we're aware. Now, these three elements are the fundamental elements of all experience. And I can say to anyone, do you think? Are you alive? Are you aware? In fact, yesterday I was saying to a group of people, are you aware? And one person said, no. I said, well, how could you answer the question then? And she went, oh, I guess I was aware. So it's the fundamental building blocks of all experience. So I love to share with people that if they can say, yes, I'm alive, yes, I think, yes, I am aware, then they can see those building blocks as what creates all of experience. Just like how many colors do you need to make any painting? 3. Okay.
Well, if you say that, then the topic of the conversation, the field, would be experience. And that was what we talked about a little bit in the beginning. Like, what is the field? What is this about?
Yeah.
And usually spiritual understandings are not, specifically not just about experience. They're about the nature of reality in a way that is not analytical, as in like Western philosophy, but in a different kind of way. So now if you say this is about experience, that even more sounds a little bit like a philosophy of mind, like a conversation about what the nature of the mind is. Does that fit?
Well, it's not how I see it. Let me be specific in how I see it. I see that the huge gift that Sydney Banks brought to the world was he connected spirituality and psychology. Now, until I met him, at least, and for countless thousands of other people, those two fields seem to be different. And when he started talking about what he calls the missing link, thought,
Right.
that connected psychology and spirituality in a way that makes it really practical. And do we want to call it philosophy? Well, we can, but it really is a spiritual understanding. Does it have philosophical implications? Do we have philosophical conversations? Of course we do. Lots of moral discussions. I love when I'm writing. So I just finished my second book with Dr. Dicken Bettinger, who is a psychologist, and we often will sort of pull back in our conversation and say, let's talk philosophically about this. What do we mean? And so then we have a philosophical conversation until we reach a point where we both know, this is what we mean. And that's what comes into the book. Because we really want people to read something that is practical, down to earth, easy to understand.
I could imagine people interested in philosophy listening to this might have one point of critique. A lot of the times when I ask you questions, you start your answer by saying, "For me, it looks like that." And I understand why you would say that.
Yeah.
I would guess at least you would kind of avoid making claims about how this understanding sees something.
Yeah.
At the same time, it makes it incredibly hard to criticize anything because anything is just so flexible. Sydney Banks is not alive anymore. You're the president of the organization that represents his work.
Yes.
If you answer so many questions with "I think," with a pre-qualifier, basically, to kind of have the possibility of take a step back.
Yeah.
How could a conversation, between other fields take place if it's all so hard to pin down? I could, maybe if I add one thing, I could imagine being a bit frustrating, to try to pinpoint something to understand the benefits and the disadvantages and maybe criticize it, or and then it's hard to do.
Yeah. It's both the frustrating part, but it's also very freeing because Sydney Banks was the first to say, "Go teach what you know. Teach what you've seen. Don't teach anything else. I have not seen what Sydney Banks saw. I can only share what I've seen," which makes what I share with anyone extremely authentic. I've seen it. And if I've seen just a tiny bit more than you have, then maybe there's a chance that you can see something too. And that's the way that this is spreading. It's simply spreading one person at a time, which can be incredibly slow, but it's quite authentic. The people who are touched by this understanding, they are touched from within them, not because they believe what I say, not because Sydney Banks even said it, because they have a realization for themselves. So I find it such a beautiful way of sharing this, one person at a time. Now, the organization, Three Principles Global Community, our vision is to get this understanding into all corners of the world because we want to help alleviate unnecessary suffering. The suffering that's created from our own minds. There's a lot of suffering that we can't alleviate, like childbirth or something like that. There's certain kinds of pains that we have that are natural, but the unnecessary suffering created from our own misunderstanding of how the mind works, that's where we have real impact. And I love having discussions with people from religions or philosophers. That's always fun and fascinating, finding places where we align and places where we can get curious about each other.
While I completely believe you on a private level, in the public space, there seem to be, I found it striking that there's been very little engagement between the Three Principles understanding and academic philosophy. Even though you're speaking directly to questions about mind, about perception, about reality, and given the massive amount of published work over the last thousands of years, the lack of interest might come across as arrogant for some. What is your response to that?
I really and truly believe that we all have to find our own path. I can't tell you what the path is. I can share mine, and if you get curious about that, you can walk along me for a minute or an hour or a year or however long. But I believe in the personal freedom to live your life the way that you want. For me, the three principles allow us to think whatever we want, become aware of whatever we want, and live our lives however we want. That's the free will part of it. It's how we use these principles to live our life. And that I have no power or control over. I can show you a way that has been helpful to me, but if it will be helpful to you, I can't really know it.
Right.
But I'd like to invite you.
To restate the question, why do you think has there been so little exchange on public forums between philosophy and the three principles understanding? Why isn't there a single philosopher who publishes work about this understanding?
I haven't noticed that there wasn't. As I said before, Sydney Banks was considered by many a philosopher. So I haven't really followed that. I know that we often have discussions with people within religions, discussions with, again, psychologists and psychiatrists. We have a lot of researchers now looking into how can we research this. And I know that you had an episode recently with some of our finest researchers that we work closely with in the Three Principles Global community and others. So we're doing what we can to support evidence-based evidence-based theories, or just showing people how this works and why it works, and why it works so quickly, and how over time it seems that even after 6 months of people being exposed to this kind of understanding, their life changes dramatically, not just in one way, but in a lot of ways. And so sometimes I just want to say, well, what if it was true? What if there was something here? Wouldn't it be worth checking out? What could the harm be?
Well, I definitely agree in the sense that I'm doing episodes and keep coming back to check it out.
Yeah.
I appreciate the research from the 3P side.
Yeah.
And the reason I speak about philosophy is because compared to other mental health approaches, this has a lot of philosophical claims. So it seemed logical to have some discourse. But do you think there's something to learn and to see new for this understanding in speaking to philosophers?
Absolutely. I always welcome open talks with all kinds of people. I'm just a very curious person. I have never stopped reading all kinds of books. I actually rarely pick up Three Principles books unless sometimes people ask me to read them and write a review or something. But I love reading all kinds of philosophy and psychology and spirituality and poetry. I believe that it enriches my life on a personal level. So I would love that, encourage it.
In philosophy, there's an old problem called the veil of perception. If we only ever experience our sense data, we can never step outside of them to know the world as it really is. The three principles say something quite similar, that we only ever experience thought, but then isn't that statement itself thought? How can we ever know whether the claim is true if we cannot step outside of thought to check it?
Well, I mean, in a way, we can't. We can't. We are constantly living in our thought-created experience. What hit me like a ton of bricks at one point was when I was listening to a Sydney Banks talk, and he said, "You must go beyond your 5 senses." And it hit me because our 5 senses tell us that this is going on. I'm here, you're there, there's water, there's all these things. So everything in my senses is showing me, telling me that I'm living in this reality. So when he said you must go beyond it, it was obvious to me that there's a reality that lies beyond what my sense perception is telling me. But I can't get to it by the senses. I think that's why people meditate. I think that's why people do things that they love, play music, and lose themselves in that. And when doing that, there's a sense of joy, there's a sense of being alive, that most people have something in their life where they go to that, and then they are completely in harmony with this life force. Now, they are perceiving it, they are living it, they are feeling it also. So it's not that they are outside of it. Everything that we perceive is going to have an experience in our bodies. But I think everyone can get a sense of sometimes, in a way, falling out of personal thinking. Into what? Into the blue sky where new ideas come from. When we talked about you get an idea out of the blue.
Right.
What is out of the blue? What is that? It seems to be a space inside that when I talk to 100 people about what is that space inside, they will use almost exactly the same words to describe it. Does it mean it's true? I don't know. In one sense, any word that I use to describe it is not that. It can't be.
Right. And the 100 people you speak to, they might say the same thing, but the source of their experience is, again, thought.
Yes.
So stepping outside of the pattern, and I think you said that directly after the question, you can't check it.
Oh, I don't know how I don't know how one would.
But you're probably saying that the case is so compelling that we just take this as like a premise and then see how far it gets us.
Yes, and it is a very simple premise that our experiences are created from one place. And then when I say place, it's simply this formless intelligence that is creating everything from moment to moment.
Something that's rarely discussed in the three principles world is morality. If everything unfolds from mind and moral clarity arises naturally from understanding, does it mean there are no objective moral facts? That nothing is truly right or wrong? How do you reconcile that with intuitions like causing harm is genuinely wrong?
You know, if I was walking with my granddaughter and a dog came towards her and wanted to bite her, I would kick the dog immediately. I would do what I could to protect her. Is that wrong? Well, for the dog's sake, I'm sure the dog owner would be quite angry with me. But so there is an instinctual way in which we do things. Now, do I personally think that there are things wrong in the way people treat each other? Absolutely. I don't have the bandwidth to know on a really big level what is right and what is wrong. I know that we as human beings use our intellect to divide the world up in right and wrong. That's why I love this poem from Rumi where he says, on the other side of wrongdoing and right doing, there is a field. I'll meet you there. And to me, that speaks about a space that is not in the world of duality. It's free from right and wrong. And if who we are is this space outside of the dualistic thinking that we are born into, then that's a field I really like to stay in a lot of the time.
And if you feel comfortable to, from not your personal stance, but from the stance of the president of the three principles global community, are there things like objective moral facts? Is there any morality out there that is not made up in the moment?
Well, from the way that we work on the board is if we hear about some of our members that are mistreating others, are being abusive, we react immediately. We have immediately it becomes a topic for us, and we talk about how can we handle this. And usually we handle it by trying to speak to the people involved and see if we can wake them up to what is doing the harm that they are doing, the misunderstanding of why they're doing what they're doing. So it's we react immediately to anything like that. So we are a group of people who, of course, have ideas of right and wrong.
Well, I don't doubt that. And you probably don't like that kind of behavior. But not liking it, not wanting it in your life is something different than saying, no, it's not just not liking. It's not just that I don't prefer murder. I don't like murder.
Yeah.
There seems to be an intuition for many people that there's something off, something wrong about it. Something deeply hard to even put in words. But the best we can do, I guess, is wrong. So again, from the 3 principles stance, and I just ask again because morality seems to be rarely a topic. Is there something that is wrong objectively? So in other words, outside of thought.
Let me say yes, and then let me say that if I have found peace inside myself, if I know that the fabric of my being is love, how could I ever harm you or hurt you? Now, coming from that knowing, if I can share this with a murderer in prison, if I can share this with somebody ready to commit murder or even suicide, when they start to realize that for themselves, that has a huge effect on how they would then act or how they would act again. That's why a lot of my colleagues are working in prisons, for instance. They are helping the people who have done crimes see that all that happened was, in that moment, they made a decision based on the way they were using this power of thought. And when they see that, they are free. They might be in jail for the rest of their lives, but they are free inside.
But was it a wrong decision? I mean, it was obviously a decision that correlated with a lot of harm.
Yes.
But that aside, was it a wrong decision?
From a human perspective, we're human beings.
Yeah.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
I find it difficult to find a situation where I think murder would ever be right. I can't find that. From where we are, from what we're doing when we work with the principles, is that we're trying to show people what made them create that murder in the moment.
Yeah.
And so by helping people to realize the innocent misuse of thought because they haven't been taught any better, that can wake them up to making other choices down the line.
Okay. I'm going to do something pretty unfair here. I'm going to ask you for fast answers for the last 2 questions, which are pretty existential questions. So I can't really imagine a fast answer, but I'm going to do it anyway.
Okay.
But you do you.
Yes.
If separation is an illusion and we are really pure consciousness, why do we seemingly have persistent private mental spaces? So why can't I read your mind and you can't read my thoughts and I don't know exactly what's going on in your experience? And also, why do the physical world seem so seemingly persistent? At least on the macro level. You talked about the quantum level where things are weird, but at least on the macro level, it seems that it's pretty reliable that this house is not going to collapse in almost every case. Yeah, we're betting thousands and millions and billions of lives every day on the reliability of the physical world. Yes. So both those mental spaces, the private nature of them, and the physical world, the persistence, how does that make sense?
We're all living in our own thought-created reality. So in that sense, there seems to be a separation. On that level, there's a separation. When we go to the formless, there isn't. So that's why even in a lot of research, you've had people have an insight in one part of the world and the same insight popped up in another person in another side of the world. So there's a lot of evidence that there is a conscious field that information can be brought up at the same time in 2 different people. But no, I do not know what you're thinking, because right now I am in my own thought-created reality. And I am also relying on my own 5 senses. I'm in that illusion of of reality. So yes, it does look like this house is pretty reliable,
Right.
which is good, or we would be running out.
Well, so what it sounds like is a bit like, okay, in theory, you would have access to the content of my mental space. But because you're kind of dreaming or having the illusion that you're separate, you can't. But then don't you sometimes have those moments where you kind of forget about yourself? You're just in the moment, just being present. When I have those moments, I do sometimes feel I have more intuition and life is easier, but I never have the impression that I can read thoughts of other people. I know exactly, what somebody's thinking of the number 4, of the number 5, of green or of blue. And there's no evidence at all that for like psychic abilities. There were so many studies, so many people try to prove it, and somehow in clinical studies never worked. Why do you think that private mental space is so stable, if it's true that we're not really separated?
I think that we are so we're kind of lost in the illusion of a separate self, that when I stay as me, there's no way I can know what you think. So for instance, when I work on one-to-one with people, even in groups, it's as if the me leaves the room. Natasha leaves the room, and I am completely free of any thinking. And I can't tell you the amount of times that people say, how did you know to ask that question? How did you know to say this thing about my dad or football or whatever it is? And so I know that when I get out of the way, something deeper speaks to me. It's also how Dickon and I write our books together. We get out of the way and we wait for a shared knowing of what is the next thing that we write. That's why we write in one voice. You can't see in any of our books that there are 2 writers, except for the front page. And in a sense, you could say that the writing comes from that out of the blue place that we've talked about so many times.
2 + 2 is 4. Is that true?
That's what I've been taught.
Good job. You're careful. Well, so the idea behind that question is, it seems like a persistent truth. It seems something that is true, independent on what anybody in the world thinks about it. And we rely even more on math as we rely on our physical understanding, one could argue. There's no principle of math. And also math seems something that is also not physical. It's not, you can't touch math. What is it? Is it just thought? And if it is, why is it so persistent?
I can't speak to why it's so persistent. I can speak to the reliability of something that we know inside, that the only thing that cannot be taken away from us is our knowing, that we rely on the house being stable, our partner never leaving, or our money situation being the same. We have been taught that something outside makes us happy, but those are not reliable. They can all be taken away. So I'm really, really curious about what is the only thing that can never leave. What's the only thing I can rely on? And isn't that my own being?
If you have a deep intuition about something, do you honestly find it more reliable than 2 + 2 being 4?
I don't even, it's what I go with now. I didn't used to. I used to go with my intellect. So I used to go with what I could try to work out. And it has led me to a lot of suffering. And I see how easier my life is now that I walk with what that sense of wisdom inside of me tells me to do. That's what gives me lasting peace. It's what is love that I feel inside and that I'm able to bring to others. And it's the source of joy of a scale that I have never experienced before. And I want this for everyone.
There's a famous problem in philosophy called the trolley problem.
The trolley problem.
Yeah, where there are 5 people chained to I kind of forget, what do you call it, where the train rides.
Yes, I know of the.
Well, there's a train coming, and they're kind of chained to the ground, and they will die if the train gets over them, obviously. But you have the possibility of pulling a lever, and then the chain goes, to a different road. But there's one person, and the question is, would you pull the lever? And in philosophy, have different ideas of morality, and some would say that passivity, not doing, is the same as killing those people. Some other thing have good arguments for not pulling the lever. Well, based on this understanding, we spoke a little bit about morality before. Would the answer just be listen inside and see what comes up?
That's exactly what I would do. I can't answer the question, but if I was in that situation, something would occur to me, and that would be what I would do.
In many Eastern traditions, consciousness is described as the very ground of reality itself. In the 3 principles, consciousness is one of 3, but it often gets the least attention. How central do you think consciousness really is in this understanding? And what's the practical role it plays in everyday life or change?
If you listen to Sydney Banks' videos, he will often say it's all consciousness. At other times, he'll say it's all thought. And other times, he'll say it's all universal mind. So I don't see them as 3 separate things. They're all pointing to one truth or one creation, that creative potential that exists within all of us to create any form. Now, what I do see is that I see them as 3 doorways. Some people love thought. They speak about thought all the time. I love consciousness. I can speak about it for hours. It's really my go-to. I love it. And for other people, it's mind. And so I really see it as it's 3 ways of speaking about the same truth, the same underlying reality, but 3 pathways in to that reality, depending on what our personal preferences are.
Okay. If mind provides insights, wisdom, intuition, doesn't it imply that there's no free will? I'll explain. If mind is a universal principle, must it not also apply to what occurs to us? And if it isn't occurring to us to listen to mind's grace and wisdom, is that lack of occurrence not also coming from mind? Isn't it then all coming down to a form of divine grace, even if there's a constant, reliable guidance that is always available to us? Isn't it coming down to divine grace because if it occurs to us to look there or not, that is making the difference?
I see wisdom as being, it works always. It's always telling us what to do, where to go. I'm feeling hungry, I'm feeling tired. It's constantly at work. The only thing that can ever take me away from knowing that is being caught up in my thinking. So again, back to the navigation system, when I'm listening to wisdom, it has a sense of ease around it. And as soon as I'm listening to thought, it often comes with an excitement or a stress. It might be a fun feeling, like an excitement about something, but it comes with a certain kind of tension. So you get to sense the difference between those 2. And I found that the more I live in harmony with the principles, the more that I live through the guidance of this wisdom, the easier my life is.
Last couple of questions. How do you know you're not just believing a more peaceful story and calling it truth?
I don't. I just really love it.
After all your years working with this understanding, if you had to describe what it feels like to live from this place rather than understanding it intellectually, what would you say?
I would say that most of the times it feels like being in love with the world. There's so much joy and peace inside, and I wish this for everyone. That's why I'm so passionate about sharing it with as many people as I can, because I know it's possible. If it's possible for me, it's possible for everyone.
What's the one thing you wish people would stop doing when trying to understanding the principles?
Trying to understand it with their intellect.
I like this. This very fast, very short questions and very fast answers. What's the question you still don't know how to answer about this understanding, but keep living into?
Well, I'm always curious because it seems to me like there are endless levels of understanding the nature of reality. Sydney Banks said so, many people have said so, and so my curiosity keeps me on this road. I have insights almost every single day into this, and so it's a journey that, for me, I don't think it will ever stop. And I'm so happy to be on this journey, and I wish this for everyone.
We spoke about how do you call it, 10,000 foot view about the principles, about its psychological implications, about the philosophy behind it, about spirituality, about stories you told.
Yeah.
Any last words? Anything you want people to see or hear leaving this conversation?
Only that if there's any part of this conversation where they felt a sense of hope inside, a sense of joy inside, then find online any videos with Sydney Banks or any of his books, or go to 3pgc.org and look for all the resources that are there for free. We are really interested in sharing this with the entire world, and there's so many resources for free. So that's what I would want to leave here with, is that people, if they're touched by anything in this conversation, go look for yourself, find out, can this be true? Was this just a little taste of something? Is there more for you to see? And I know from my own experience there's always more to see. So I hope you have a wonderful journey home.
Natasha, it was a big joy speaking to you. It was an exciting exploration in all directions, it seemed. Thank you so much.
Thank you, Michael. Thank you.
If you enjoyed this episode, you might also enjoy my conversation with Dr. Aaron Turner, titled The 3 Principles of Human Experience. You can find it by clicking here. If you want to support the channel and get access to early episodes with minimal or no ads, please subscribe to my Substack by clicking here.